Hey guys, hello and welcome to Naveed for Speed. In today's video, I am going to be showing you around the Mazda CX-60. In particular, this is the new Mazda CX-60 for 2025. Now, Mazda CX-60 has been around since 2022, and since then, Mazda have sold over 6,500 of these here in the UK. So in today's video, I am going to be showing you around the new features or the changes to this new Mazda CX-60. I'm going to be taking you around the exterior of the car, showing you the interior of the car, and I'm going to take it out to drive. Now, if you've seen my previous Mazda CX-80 videos, then you will know that that is now the flagship SUV for Mazda here in the UK. But it sits on the same architecture as the Mazda CX-60. And of course, this one is slightly smaller than that car, but I'll show you some of the differences. Let me start with the powertrains, because the car that I have here has a 3.3 litre inline-six diesel engine, which is the same as what you get in the Mazda CX-80. You also get a 2.5 litre petrol engine as a plug-in hybrid, and you can get that in the CX-60 and the CX-80. The only difference in terms of powertrains is in the CX-60 diesel version, you can get it as a rear-wheel drive or an all-wheel drive, whereas in the CX-80, you can only get it as an all-wheel drive version. Now, I did mention that both the CX-60 and the CX-80 sit on the same architecture, there's the same platform, but it's crucial to note that the CX-80 is a bigger car. As I take you around the car, I'll explain some of the dimensions. But let me start at the front of this car, because I want to start by mentioning this signature 5-point grille in the Mazda CX-60. You get this in the Mazda CX-80 as well, and I think it looks pretty cool. This particular car that I have is a Takumi spec, so it's one of the top specs, and you'll notice that the patterns inside the grille are vertical, whereas in some of the other cars, like the diesel version of the Mazda CX-80 that I drove, they are horizontal, they're a little bit different. That was a Homura spec car, so it's a subtle difference. I didn't actually notice it. I was told it, but yeah, that's one way of recognizing what spec you're driving. You got chrome and around the grille in this version. In the Homura versions, you get black chrome, so it's really dark. As we come further towards the side of the car, I need to mention these 20-inch black diamond cut alloy wheels. Come with this sort of two-tone black and obviously diamond cut effect in there. I think they look really cool, suit the car really well. As I take you further towards the side of the car, I'm going to mention this feature over here which says inline-six. It tells you a little bit about the powertrain that you have. Overall, if you look at the side of the car, you get a better sense of the color of the car. This car is Soul Red Crystal. It's a signature Mazda color. It's one that I've seen most Mazda cars in. I'm not sure about the spec, the stats in terms of how many Soul Red Crystal cars Mazda has sold, but it is one of the most popular cars. But anyway, as I take you further towards the side of the car, you'll notice this particular car doesn't have roof rails. The CX-80 does. That's different between this and the CX-80. Interesting thing, in terms of this car compared to the CX-80, it's the same car from the front all the way to this door line. If you look at the CX-80, you'll notice the front door is actually quite short because it's pretty much identical up until here. It's here onwards that there are changes. Of course, the CX-60 has a shorter rear door, and then this sort of area here is slightly different in terms of the design between this car and the CX-80. You'll notice the CX-60 is shorter than the CX-80 because obviously the CX-80 is bigger, it's the flagship SUV, but also it's shorter as well. So the CX-80 is not only longer and taller, obviously it has more room, a bigger canvas to play with, but it's also got a bigger wheelbase. This car has a shorter wheelbase, which I imagine is going to make it more agile. I have driven this very briefly and I can feel there's something there. When I take it out on the road, I'll let you know a little bit more about how it feels. But if we come to the back of the car, I just want to tell you very briefly about the boot, which in this spec you can use your foot to open. And now here is the boot. You've got over 500 litres of boot space back here, and you can fold the rear seats down with a 40-20-40 split. And when you fold those down, you get around over 1700 litres of boot space. So it's still a decent amount of boot space. One thing I will mention though is you don't get any space underneath the floor, because you've got all whatever bits over there. I'm not sure if you can, oh well, you can take some of that out, but anyway, what it does mean is that you have this sort of a floor which is level to this sort of skid plate, plastic skid plate here, so you can take things in and out easier. But yeah, that's your boot space back here. What does this lever do? Oh, and there's two on this side. That one struggled a little bit, but I didn't know that. Anyway, there you are. Let me show you the interior of this car, and maybe I'll discover something new there as well. So let me tell you about the interior of the Mazda CX-60, the new Mazda CX-60. Before I do want to mention, actually, I did forget to mention when talking about the colors of this car, the new CX-60 now comes with a new color called Zircon Sand. It looks really interesting. It does look like a sort of muddy sand color, different to what you would get as standard or what you would see out on the road. So I think that's quite cool. I wonder how many of that is going to sell. But anyway, let me tell you about the interior, because I have here the Takumi spec. Is it the Takumi spec, or it's the Takumi Plus spec actually I have in here. So it's the very top trim level. So it should have all the creature comforts. And you can kind of get a sense that the interior is quite nice. You've got a load of materials. You've got your leathers, you've got your fabrics in here, you've got your wood, maple wood, you've got your chrome, you've got plastics, you've got, look at this leather with the contrasting stitching in the steering wheel. I think it all looks really quite nice. And you've got the white Napa leather on the seats with this sort of contrasting bit over here. Oh, that's the seatbelt thing. With the contrasting bit in here. I think it looks really quite nice. And I've mentioned in the past that I thought Mazda interiors, especially when they were black leather, were quite dark. But I quite like that this makes everything feel lighter. It makes you feel a little bit more. It doesn't feel like you're claustrophobic, like you're stuck inside something. It feels like you've got a lot of space. You still get the wider center console like you get in the CX-80. Of course, the CX-80 is based off this car, and you can see the maple wood in there. So I think that's really quite cool. I mean, if you've seen my Mazda CX-80 video, you'll see that most of the stuff in the interior, particularly the plug-in hybrid one, you'll see most of the interior is similar to that. I do like the sunroof that you get here in the Takumi Plus spec. Again, lets loads of light in, so that's really quite cool. I'll just start up the car for a second, because, and you'll notice that it specifically makes this the startup noise of that diesel engine coming to life, because I want to talk to you about the infotainment system, which isn't touchscreen. I really hate that about Mazda systems, but again, maybe it's there, so you don't have to reach forward. You can just use the selector over here. This is a system which you'll be familiar with in most Mazda vehicles. You can simply just press the shortcuts and you can get to where you need to go, and then you just turn this. I think ultimately, if you are going to make a car that's not touchscreen, I think Mazda have done a really good job of making sure that it's easy to navigate by just using this slider over here, and you can, you know, click through wherever you need to click through, and you can change whatever. And then you've got shortcuts for your map and for your music and for going back to home. So I really quite like how it comes together. And what it also means, because that is very simple to use and very simple to navigate, it also means you've got your climate controls over here in front of you as separate buttons, which are really good, really intuitive to use. You've got heated seats, heated steering wheel, you know, ventilated seats as well. It's all there as simple one button touches, rather than having to cycle through menus or stuff. Really quite like that. But overall, I think the interior of the CX-60, whilst it hasn't changed a lot, I think it complements the car. But some of the major changes of this car are the suspension setup, the way that this car should feel on the road. So I suppose we best take it out on the road now, and I'll see you there. So let's see what the Mazda CX-60 is like to drive. Of course, this car comes with the 3.3 litre inline diesel engine, which produces 254 horsepower. It's smaller than the Mazda CX-80, which also has the similar powertrain, and it has a smaller wheelbase. So I'm assuming what that means is that this car is going to be quite agile. it is a car that has been quite successful for Mazda, and clearly so, because it's it's decent size, great for families. Although if you've got a larger family, then the CX-80 would make sense. Think of this almost in terms of, I mean, I do a lot of stuff to do with Nissans. You might have seen in my videos, you've got the Qashqai and the X-Trail. Think of this as the Qashqai to the CX-80's X-Trail. So I think it should be good. Let's have a look as we take it around some of these corners. Now you see, just like the CX-80, I'm not seeing much lean. And obviously in the CX-80, I expected there to be lean. It's a taller car. With this one, I didn't expect there to be much lean anyway. So that's quite good. It feels lighter. I don't know if it is lighter, but it feels lighter. It feels something which would be at home a little bit more, during driving on like an A road or a B road, for example, driving on road that's a little bit more uneven surface. And to be honest, I think because it's smaller, it feels like it's not that firm on the road. I don't know, why that would be, but I'm not feeling like I'm getting a lot of feedback in terms of movement when it comes to the speed bumps. And I think, again, that has something to do with Mazda's new suspension setup in this car. So I think when it comes to comfortable driving, it's perfectly straightforward. When it comes to driving this car slowly, like we are doing now, cruising along, it's easy. You've got the 8-speed gearbox. You could just sit back and relax with a decent driving position. I feel like I'm sat lower than in the CX-80. Of course, again, that car is taller. It's higher. But yeah, I feel like I'm sat lower. But again, I don't feel like I've got much issues with visibility all around. Maybe out the back, I'm feeling like I'm having to look over the rear seats. But aside from that, yeah, I don't think there's much issues with visibility. In terms of maneuvering this car, yes, it's a diesel. It's not the same as the plug-in hybrid. But even this diesel engine, you will hear a bit of noise as the diesel engine starts to rev a little bit more as you're moving along. Let's say you've just put the car into reverse, but it actually does move quite well. It's nice and smooth. The steering wheel is nice and light, and generally it's easy. So I think when it comes to using this car every day, that's quite convenient. But when you are going on longer journeys, or when you are speeding up a little bit, as we are going to do now, then you'll hear the diesel engine kick in, but there is torque there for when you need it. I didn't feel like I was struggling there. There's torque. When you go around bends, it stays relatively flat. So in terms of giving you that confidence, in terms of giving you like a peace of mind, you know that with this car you'll be okay. Mazda cars are usually offered at a lower price point compared to their competitors. This particular one is £56,500 with the Soul Red Crystal paint color. And so I think it offers good value, but I think you can get, maybe a slightly lower spec CX-80 for that money. So while this car has been quite successful, and the CX-80 is a new market for Mazda, I still think this car does fulfill a need. It is, an SUV, still comes with an all-wheel drive version. It still has the same powertrains as the CX-80, but it's slightly smaller. It's slightly easy to park. It's slightly easy to drive, to move around the city. And then when you take it on roads like this, I do have the confidence in it, especially on this bumpy road, and that I didn't think I would. I really didn't think I would, but I'm happy to just stay at this speed on this road and just keep going. I'm actually really surprised with the changes that they've made in terms of that suspension. I believe they've removed the rear roll bars, so it just makes everything that little bit more smoother, that little bit more composed. So I think overall, the Mazda CX-60 is above all else capable, engaging. It is quite nice to drive on a B road, which I think as we're moving towards electric cars, as we're moving towards this new age of cars, particularly an era of cars that isn't necessarily favored by us car enthusiasts. I think this car, even though you might think it's a bit bland, it is quite fun to drive. So I wonder how you guys feel about this car. I wonder what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. But ultimately, I would like to thank you for watching this video and for supporting my channel. And I hope to see you on the next video. Thank you and take care.